Hello, and welcome to my video. Now, this might sound like a really whiny thing to say, but with the way that YouTube has been working lately, I don't really expect this video to be seen by many, if any, people at all. But I'm going to put it out there anyways because this is something that I have debated with friends. I have watched videos on YouTube myself of people entertaining this debate numerous times, over and over and over again. And either information is wrong or an important detail is left out or missed, or the way it came out didn't seem really like it was accurate to have been said. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a video now of my take on the PC versus console. And I've I've done quite a bit of thinking, and there's just every video I have seen about this is either super biased towards one side of the fence or the other. And I'm not doing that with this video. Yeah, I'm going to flat out say I am primarily a PC gamer. I believe that, the fact of the matter is that on a hardware level, PCs are superior machines. They are capable of doing far harder work. They are capable of doing more work. They are more powerful. You can build a gaming PC and it can push 4K resolution, for example, at 60 frames per second natively. None of the upscaling nonsense that like the Xbox One, the One S, the PS4, the PS4 Pro. Yeah, I might be wrong about the Pro. But none of that upscaling nonsense. And they just do it natively. Computers are, like I said, on a hardware level, far more powerful machines. They are capable of a lot more. And unless you do something absolutely, completely stupid, a lot of times it can be a lot simpler, a lot easier to accomplish specifically what you want, what you're trying to accomplish. Whereas on consoles, things like any kind of like built-in streaming capabilities, like to stream towards Twitch or Mixer or YouTube, any of that nonsense is pretty much locked down to what the console manufacturers want. Now, I may get a few things wrong myself here, and this is probably gonna seem a little scatterbrained. I tried writing a script for this, and then it's like, alright, you know what, I'm gonna wind up forgetting stuff anyways as I'm trying to write this, and I'm going to try and squeeze it in last minute as it, pops into my head as I'm recording this. Anyways, and it's gonna seem stupid. So, instead of having a mostly professional sounding, recording of me babbling on about this and risk the concept of like you getting completely jarred out of the immersion of my one-sided conversation here. I'm just gonna do the whole thing like super unprofessional, and unprofessionalism should be pretty blatantly obvious since I'm just recording this audio and then adding it onto some clips of me playing Fortnite Battle Royale. But the thing is, though, is that, yeah, I prefer gaming on computer. But that does not mean that just because, as far as the hardware is concerned, computers are superior machines, that doesn't mean that consoles don't have their place. This does not mean that consoles don't have their pros over certain cons with a PC. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to, jump right into it. Computers, yeah, one downside is that they can get expensive. And right now, especially with the super inflated graphics card prices, getting a console might in fact be the cheaper route. And oftentimes, it even is, regardless of inflated graphics card prices. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, initial build, we'll go ahead and I'll just for the fun here, let's pretend, for the sake of pricing listings, that it's back in June of last year. I picked up a GTX 1080 Founders Edition for $550, $450, somewhere. Yeah, it was $549 at Best Buy, and that's super fantastic. Now, my computer in general is a tad overkill because I have basically kind of I guess you could kind of consider it a workstation. It's the X99 platform from Intel, so it's not games only. Now I can do a little bit of gaming, and I can do a little bit of actually working with my processor. So the pricing there is a little skewed, but you can build a reasonable computer for a reasonable price. And yeah, this quote unquote reasonable price could be, if you're going for close to the top of the line, or it's gonna last you for a few years. You could be looking to spend anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000, $2,500 for something decently powerful that's gonna last for a few years. And we're especially at a good time now where, just for fun, the other day I've got an Intel Core i7 5820K overclocked to 4.4 gigahertz. I went in just for the fun though the other day, and I disabled all but 2 cores. So I essentially had 2 cores, 4 threads going. Ran Fortnite without a problem. And we're getting to the point now though where there are some there are games that are coming out that are like really well optimized to run well on pretty much even low end hardware. One of the channels I watch, Jay's 2 Cents, he actually just did a video last week, I believe. He released a video pointing out where he played Fortnite Battle Royale, like, and it ran really, really well, all things considered, without a graphics card at all. Because he used one of the new Ryzen chips. I cannot remember off the top of my head which one, but it's one of the new release. Blah, blah, blah. One of the new releases that has the it's the APU. It's got the Ryzen CPU with an integrated Vega based GPU, just like the old AMD A series, you know, the A4s, the A6, A8, A10s. Same concept, just this time around it's obviously the Ryzen architecture along with the Vega GPU architecture. And it ran really, really well. You know, with on an integrated graphics chip. So, I mean, you can build, you know, something that's like low end or, you know, low-ish end CPU. You can get yourself like a full-blown, you know, Ryzen 5 or Ryzen 7 for the, like, I think the Ryzen 7s, especially like the 1800X is like somewhere between $500 to $700 right now, depending upon where you look. I mean, you could get a Ryzen 5 for like $300, roughly, and get a GTX 1080. I think last time I looked on Newegg, the prices for a GTX 1080 Founders Edition, like roughly $1,000, which is extremely stupid overpriced. But I mean, if you want to build a computer, regardless of the pricings, let's go ahead. All right, lowest price. That is not a 1080. All right, you can actually, yeah, okay, so you, right now on Newegg, I mean, it's on sale right now. But I see one here, the Gigabyte G1 Gaming GTX 1080 for $620. There's an EVGA one with a reference style cooler for $624. Right here on Newegg, and then there's another Gigabyte GTX 1080. Doesn't say anything about it being a G1 Gaming, so I'm guessing it's got just some sort of stock OEM like BIOS on it instead of like being like super overclocked or whatever out of the box. It's $630. So you take, and since I'm like right here, why not? Alright, so Ryzen. Alright, you could get a Ryzen 5 1600 for $180. So you take, we'll say $200 for the Ryzen 5 for the CPU, and we'll say just for rounding up, you know, plan high and have more left over when you're done, $700 for the graphics card. It's $900 right there. You could then go spend like anywhere from $20 to $50 on a cheap case. Spend $100 on a decent, even if not like super top of the line or anything, but a reasonable, like decent, even if slightly on the low end, decent motherboard. So that's what, another 150. So that's $1,050, and then you could spend $200 on storage. You could go ahead and probably pick up a low capacity solid state drive, and then like a 1 terabyte drive for storage. Within that, like $200. So that's less than $1,500, and you've got a rig that will run games for, I mean, anything that's out now, along with most anything that'll probably come out for the next 5 to 10 years. Now, I know that, yes, granted, especially with like the GPU prices, this is where this is where you start to hit the wall of fucking no returns. And this is an expression that I know I just butchered, and I've heard it a bunch of times, and I'm kind of annoyed with myself that I can't remember what it actually is. But what's going to happen now, though, is like people who advocate for consoles are like, oh, well, when a console can't handle the new releases anymore, it's only like $2, $3, $4 at the most, $100, blah blah blah, buy a new console, yada yada yada, and blah 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 blah. Well, while that may be true, versus like with a computer, it costs you like $700 to upgrade or update what you have for a graphics card. With a console, you lose backwards compatibility. You essentially have to wait. Like, there's still games that I own through the Xbox 360 marketplace that they haven't, ported over to Xbox One yet. I mean, I've got a few of my games that I have on 360 on my Xbox One, but there's still a few that I would actually like to be able to go play that I can't. I mean, I could, but I don't want to use my Xbox 360. It kind of sits as a decoration at this point. And that's one of the things you run into. Now, and especially if you, as a gamer, want to be able to, play all the games. You've got things on console like exclusives. Yeah, PC has probably tens of thousands of exclusives. But a lot of those you could play on just some little shit beater, laptop, because they're just indie games that are kind of developed by some, little probably group of like 15 to 25-year-olds looking to get their foot in the door in development. And they put out something. It may not be like super high budget. It may not be super pretty. But I mean, a lot of them, they are good games. The gameplay, the story, the mechanics, the functions, the core concept of the game, fairly decent. But you have these AAA titles that are exclusives. Like, you got Halo on the Xbox line. You got God of War on the PlayStation line. You've also got Gears of War on the Xbox line. That's more up my alley. Halo is just kind of, whatever to me. But the problem is then you wind up running into a lack of guarantee of backward compatibility. Like right now, I'm fortunate enough that the Gears of War series, like the entire series, was Microsoft ported it, or whoever their porting development team is. They ported all the Gears of War games for Xbox 360 onto the Xbox One. So I currently own like all the Gears of War games. I have them all on my Xbox. Gears of War 1, 2, 3, Judgment, Gears of War Ultimate Edition, and Gears of War 4. Have them all. And I can play them all on my Xbox One. But there's no guarantee of that happening. And a lot of times, what I've been seeing with PlayStation is when it does happen, it could very much happen in the form of, oh, you need to go rebuy it, like they did with the later generations of the PlayStation 3. There is the like Grand Theft Auto original trilogy available on the PlayStation Network store. They are the PS2 releases that they were ported over to the PS3. But you still couldn't take and put in your PS2 disc of the game and play the game. You'd have to purchase the game again through the store. And that's just a load of baloney. And there's also the added on PC, you can play online for free. You buy your computer or build your computer or whatever. You pay for your internet service and you go through whatever online service you're using, whether it be like Steam, Origin, Uplay. They don't charge you anything extra. You don't have to pay like Microsoft, because I mean, like if you're running Microsoft, if you're running Windows, if you're running like a normal computer with Windows on it, it's owned by Microsoft. Especially with Windows. Windows 10 is really bad about like trying to manipulate every little dollar out of you. But you don't have to pay like an extra fee in order to be able to play online. And companies like Microsoft or Valve, which owns Steam, or Origin, or EA, which owns Origin, and Ubisoft that owns Uplay, these big companies, they know better than to try and charge their customers an extra fee on top of the purchases of the games, because the PC Master Race, as everybody likes to call it, would collectively come together and completely boycott that platform and that company for doing that. In fact, such a thing just happened with EA's recent release, well, somewhat recent release, of Battlefront 2. They had this whole crap where there was a bunch of stuff in the game that was locked between like either 40 hours of grinding on this one thing to unlock this one thing, to unlock this one character, or behind a paywall. And gamers collectively across all platforms sent such backlash at EA. They wound up initially just outright disabling the in-game store, and that way it's basically on a level playing field of, okay, well, no, everybody has to do the 40 hours of each and every little thing to unlock each and every little thing that they want. And actually, from what I've been hearing lately, I guess they've rolled out a bunch of updates retweaking the game so that it's not so just a stupid grind. The sad part being is that nowadays these AAA companies, these game development companies or publishers that pump out the AAA titles like Star Wars Battlefront and the Battlefield series, the Call of Duty series. If not the developers or the publishers themselves, there's shareholders in the that are invested into the company that, all right, we want to see these kinds of results in the finance area. And so these games are coming out seeming a lot like they want to just fish money out of you. And the thing is with PC gamers, it seems there's a clear line drawn in the sand that these companies will not cross, at least not for a long time. They won't even try to cross them because of things that, like I just said, what just happened with the whole Battlefront 2 situation. On the other hand, though, on consoles, we see extortion like this all the time. We have, on consoles, you have to pay Microsoft or Sony an extra, monthly fee to be able to play online. And that's just why. I've already given you money for the console. You're getting money from every game purchase I make. Why should I have to pay you even more money on top of all of that? On top of already paying for, my internet provider to be able to play online with my friends. Unfortunately, Sony had a chance. Sony had the opportunity to nip that shit in the bud, and they failed. And then they just wound up following suit. Because when the PS3 first came out, PSN was completely free. There wasn't anything. There was no service that you couldn't make use of without having to pay a subscription fee to use online services. You could play games online with no subscriptions. Not a problem. Unfortunately, the PlayStation 3 failed in a lot of other areas, and, well, they wound up following suit. But my point here is, as long-winded as that was, my point here is that, yeah, upfront cost with a PC, to either buy or build it, in the long run, you're potentially either saving money or it's at least matched, especially if you want to make use of online services, playing games online. I mean, not so much anymore, but I remember the days when on the Xbox 360, you had to have Xbox Live Gold even just to stream Netflix or to use the built-in Xbox 360 version of Internet Explorer. You couldn't browse the web. You couldn't go online for anything unless you had a gold Xbox Live subscription. So, yeah. In the long run, you're at least spending about the same either route you go. Because, I mean, yeah, there's, like, deals, like, you get discounts with Xbox Live Gold if you buy, like, 3 months at a time. It's $25 instead of $30, because, like, $10 a month if you pay it per month. But if you spend, I mean, well, okay, so, like, we'll go with that right there, the $25 for 3 months. That's a quarter of a year. That's $100 per year. $120 if you buy it month to month. But if you do the 3 at a time, it's $25 for a quarter of a year. So multiply that by 4. That's $100 per year in order to be able to play your games online. On top of I think the going rate right now for like a, well, you know what, let's just go ahead and look it up. Alright, so yeah, right on Walmart.com, you can get like a brand new Xbox One. It seems like most of them are, let's go look at consoles. You got variations going on here. But like you got, say, the Sea of Thieves edition, or at least it included, of the Xbox One S, 1 terabyte for $300. The Xbox One X, 1 terabyte with seemingly nothing included for games or anything, like $445. Now, you could go ahead and play the argument of, oh, well, yeah, they got all that, like, beefy hardware, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, though, is that is in the PC world, that hardware and the ability to use it, or the equivalent of that hardware, and the ability to use it has been around like all this time. So what you're doing is, we'll just say a nice round number, $300 per console. You spend the $300 to get, the Xbox One, when that's the current model. And then as time goes on and they start adding other things to games that wind up requiring the extra beefed up hardware in the Xbox One S that isn't present in the original Xbox One, then you're spending another $300 to upgrade to that. There's $600 right there. And then if, like, you want the whole 4K blah blah blah, the actual, like, native 4K, then you're looking at getting the Xbox One X, which will continue to roll with the $300. There's $900 total right there that you have spent on Xbox consoles. Now, technically, yeah, that's still cheaper than the price tag that I presented as compared to building a computer. But you can, in turn, also add on the fact that over all these years, these like 5 years, that's another $500 you spent on Xbox Live Gold to be able to play online with your friends. So there's now you're at $1,400. Now you're at $1,400. So you're not really saving any money unless you just wait and wait and wait and wait, and then just buy the Xbox One X right from the get-go. Now, I know what you're thinking, and you're probably right. There's also the concept of graphics cards themselves. You know, computer hardware is also evolving like crazy. And yes, you're right. Here and there, you do need to upgrade your hardware in your computer. But here's the thing. The upgrade, the required upgrade intervals are fewer. Because even though maybe not capable of handling it well, a GTX 980 from NVIDIA supports native 4K. It might struggle to run at 60 frames per second depending upon the game, but it can do it. And there's various other methods that you can do. You could take, and when they first came out, the Radeon RX 480 was designed to be basically a budget, VR capable graphics card. And when they first came out, they ranged from $200 to $300, depending upon which version of the card you got. Whether it was a reference design from AMD, or if it was an aftermarket card. I have one that is currently in my wife's computer right now. And my wife and I have been together for 3.5 years now. A little over 3.5 years. She and I have actually been together. And when she and I first got together, what I had for a computer wasn't the greatest. It was definitely outdated at that time. But I was still capable. I had an old AMD quad core. I think it was one of the Phenom 2 X4s. It might have even been a dual core. But I had that coupled with a GTX 295 that I bought off Craigslist for $100. And yeah, old. I know. I'm very well aware of this. But we're talking 2014 summer, spring and summer of 2014, and that computer was capable of running Saints Row 4. Unfortunately, the GTX 295 was just an extremely power-hungry graphics card, and the old 450 watt power supply I was using to run it wound up fizzling out because it was too hard on that power supply. But nevertheless, at that time, I probably had $500 total into that computer. and it ran Saints Row 4 just fine. There's also the added concept of the fact that, on top of that, when I upgraded from that, I upgraded to a Radeon HD 7970 GHZ edition. When I built my wife her first gaming computer, I spent $100 and did an oil change for a friend of mine, and I wound up having an A8 based system by an AMD A8 5600 based system with a Radeon HD 6770 graphics card in it. Well, when that died, due to me being slightly careless, I replaced it with a Radeon HD 6870 X2. Which basically, it's two of those GPUs on one board, wrapped up into one graphics card. So it had, Crossfire, and it was on the same board. So, anyways, and I only picked that up for like $50 off of Craigslist. And then I've also wound up having another 7970 GHZ edition, because I dabbled with Crossfire a little bit, because in like the 2015-2016 time frame even, the 7970, because it was the Sapphire, the one from Sapphire, had dual BIOS. It was, they're the same architecture, same damn GPU as a R9 280X. I'm running those in Crossfire, and it was pretty decent. And I upgraded from those to the RX 480. And when I did that, I put one of the 7970s in my wife's computer. And then when I upgraded to the GTX 1080 that I'm running now, I put the 480 in her computer. And a lot of these upgrades is just, I'm sitting here upgrading because I'm a performance whore, basically, is what it is. I'm not willing to spend the $1,200 on a Titan, but I've got something that's at least in the top 10 for performance as far as graphics cards go, and it serves me just fine. A lot of what I was trying to do though was trying to smoothly run 3 screens in either Infinity or Surround, depending upon which GPU manufacturer you're using. That's what I was ultimately trying to aim for. I have since given up on that, just due to space limitations. But when I was going for it, it required a lot more oomph than I really needed to be able to play the games. And a lot of it, I don't even need the surround, the triple screen, the extra wide picture to really enjoy the game. It was something I wanted to do just for the woohoos of it, because it was something that I had always wanted to do since I had first heard about the technology back shortly after I had first gotten my GTX 560 Ti back in the day. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, I've wandered off, way off of the whole point of this video. But the thing is I do. To some extent, I feel the need to put in extra effort into defending the PC Master Race, as it's called, as a joke, by the way. Because a lot of people either overestimate how much you really have to sink into it, or underestimate what you get out of it, or a combination of both. Because especially with people who have been like all about the console, like their entire gaming life, they don't always necessarily know where to go to actually acquire appropriate information that's actually going to be helpful to them when they acquire the interest, or when they develop the interest in looking into gaming on a PC. But I mean, my main point here is that, like, computers are not as super expensive, even with graphics card prices being super inflated right now. You could spend $1,500 and get a pretty balls-to-the-wall system that's going to last you longer than consoles typically do. Like I said, you could go take right now, spend that $1,500, get yourself a GTX 1080, a Ryzen 5 1600 for a CPU, and boom, you're gonna be capable of 4K gaming right there. There's the $900 you would have spent on getting each 3 individual Xbox Ones if you were like following along. Plus you get the benefit of being able to play online for free. But here's where it really becomes a beneficial thing, in my opinion, to be on computer. You know, to be primarily a PC gamer. Like I said, yes, every once in a while, there comes a time when you really do need to upgrade what you have for hardware in your computer in order to be able to play current games. If nothing else, it's because of the fact that, you know, changes in the technology used, like the version of DirectX. Like right now, when Windows 10 has DirectX 12, and a lot of titles, and this is actually where this becomes a little bit fuzzy, because 5 years ago, three and a half years ago, when I was actually using that GTX 295, yeah, I could play like games like Saints Row 4. Pretty sure I even tried playing Battlefield 3 on it successfully. But the thing is it supported, it's because it supported being able to display and run DirectX 11. It couldn't take advantage of most of the DirectX 11 features, but it supported it in the fact that in the computer language that DirectX 11 functioned and it spoke, the GTX 295 could understand it. Though it did actually run basically in DirectX 10. That card would not today be able to run Gears of War 4 or Gears of War Ultimate Edition or any other of the games really purchased through the Microsoft Store on Windows 10, because they all run DirectX 12, which wasn't even a concept that I'm aware of at the time that the GTX 200 series was developed. So, yeah, once in a while, you have no choice but to upgrade your hardware. Now, this is where you kind of see a little bit of extra return for spending potentially the extra amount of money to build a computer instead of going with a console. With a console, every time you get the next one, whether it be the next version or the entire next generation, there's a process you have to go through in order to transfer all of your stuff. Whether it be re-downloading everything or just copying everything over using an external storage device, or I know the PS3 at one point had the ability you could actually system link them together with an Ethernet cable and basically transfer everything, assuming it still worked, from your old one to your new one. But I mean, this is still a painfully time-consuming process, especially with the 1 and 2 terabyte, Xbox One models. Games being huge these days. I'm not sure about on the Xbox One, but I know on Windows 10, Gears of War 4 takes up 120 gigabytes of hard drive space. And Windows 10 and the Xbox One operating system are extremely similar. I would even venture the guess that, quite frankly, the kernel is identical. But that's neither here nor there. You're looking at spending a lot of time transferring everything from one console to the next, because you're using a completely different system. With a computer, though, you don't have that problem. Just swap whatever part you need, and as long as it's not a hard drive that you're swapping, once the swap is done, you've got the same exact machine as far as functionality, usability. Everything you have is still there. It's still the same machine. That is, I believe, one of the biggest benefits of having a PC over a console. I know this is long-winded, and I will get to the pros about consoles. But the thing is, though, you sit there, you upgrade your hardware in your computer, and boom. You power it on, install the new drivers if need be. In 20 minutes, you're good to go. Now, the other kinds of cool things is basically just enthusiast type of things. Like I was talking about earlier, how I was trying to set myself up so I could run games in kind of a triple screen kind of setup. The things like that you can't do with consoles. But now here's where I'm going to get into the pros about consoles. If you are just interested in the console, just to play the games, have at it. There are plenty of great games that, I mean, even if they're exclusives, they are. Boom, there you go. I mean, it's a plug and play system. You hook it up, and as long as it's not faulty, it's simple. You plug it into the wall, you plug it into your TV, you put a disc in. It's basically that simple. And to a lot of people, that is the appealing factor. A friend of mine, in fact, has actually specifically told me that, yeah, he acknowledges, he admits, hardware-wise, PCs are superior machines. He just likes the simplicity of put the disc in and it works. End of story. And that's one thing that seems to be missed a lot. Is consoles can provide you with a great gaming experience. I mean, there's no real reason that they can't. They are capable of providing a great gaming experience, especially with some of the exclusives. And the thing is a lot of people leave that out when they're trying to argue against consoles. They ignore that. There'll be one person arguing, it's all controller based, so I can sit on my couch across the living room, yada yada yada. And someone on the PC side will, come back with, yeah, well, you know what? You can do that with a computer too. I mean, right, come on. But everyone who ever seems to bring it up always tries to argue that, the exclusives are one reason why console. It's one of the things that makes consoles bad. Now, don't get me wrong. Exclusives are kind of bullshit in their own way, because it's pretty much, if it's a game you want to play, you have to buy a platform. Like, for God of War, yeah, you have to buy a PlayStation. For Gears of War, you have to buy an Xbox. I mean, that aspect of it is kind of bullshit. But, I mean, the exclusives are there. It's gonna happen. Take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But, I mean, it's not like these games that you have access to only because you have that console. They're good games. Most of the time, they are good games. And honestly, some of them are, in fact, worth spending the money on the console just to have that exclusive. Like right now, I mean, I got it for dirt cheap. But right now, I have a PlayStation 3 because of God of War. I had the first 2 God of War games on PlayStation 2. In fact, I actually still do. And I thought they were great. And for funsies, one day, a few years ago, I picked up a PS3 and got the God of War 3 and God of War Ascension for Christmas. And well, I actually wound up selling that PS3, but I held on to the games. And I actually wound up recently reacquiring myself another PlayStation 3 for the sake, with the intentions of having it for God of War games. And I mean, like I said, sometimes, especially if you can get a good deal, some of the exclusives are worth having the console. Like the God of War games. Not God of War, Gears of War. The whole main reason I have an Xbox One and an Xbox 360 is for the God of War, the Gears of War games. Because although Gears of War Ultimate Edition and Gears of War 4 are available on Windows 10, Microsoft hasn't put the other 4 Gears of War games on Windows 10 yet, and it's a little frustrating, but because they are games I would rather play with mouse and keyboard, but they're there. I can play them if I really want to, and you know, one of these days I may very well do just that. And the thing is another benefit to consoles. I mean, I personally, I do not like I don't know if they're still calling it this, but I don't much care for the dashboard on the Xbox One. When I first got my Xbox One S, it was I don't know, like last fall. It was fall of 2017. And I didn't care for the design and the way it worked and the layout, but I managed to adjust to it, and so you're right, I can deal with this. And then I don't know when, but like, good grief, ooh, they went and changed it all up a couple months ago, and I just find it a lot harder to use, and I don't like it. But I still make do. I'm not as happy about it, but hey. But generally speaking, though, consoles are simpler to use because on PC you have all these different game developers who, like all the real big ones like Ubisoft, EA, Valve. They, you know, we've got Origin, Uplay, and Steam, and there's probably a bunch more out there too that I don't know about off the top of my head. And you have to go through those platforms. You have to go through those third-party programs to be able to play with your friends. And when it gets really complicated and annoying when you buy a game through Steam and it requires Uplay in order to play. Like Far Cry 5. Pretty sure The Division was as well, and so is Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege. You know, and those are just like some of the more recent titles. Ghost Recon Wildlands. You know, those games all, I mean, well, actually Wildlands I can't really specify because I actually got that through Uplay, specifically. Not through Steam. But the game's multiplayer, even if you buy the game through Steam, the multiplayer for the game runs through Uplay. Runs through Ubisoft's services. And then you got your Call of Duty games on Steam, and you got your Battlefield games on EA's Origin. So you got all these different locations, all these different programs where you have all your friends in various different places, and even some of them even overlap. This is where one of the other places where I feel consoles could teach PC a thing or two is everything on console is handled through the console's friends system. You got your Xbox Live friends, and whatever the equivalent. You got your PS Network, your PlayStation Network friends, and it's all the trying to link up and multiplayer is all handled through those services instead of having to have like a couple of friends as friends in like 3 or 4 different third-party platforms on the computer. You got them all is on one list on your your Xbox Live profile, and you guys can use that to link up with each other. It's all handled through the console and not any kind of services done by the game developers or the game publishers. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, just like with any other rule. With certain circumstances, you have wondrous game developers like Epic Games. I'm not sure what their motivation was for selling off the Gears of War franchise to the Coalition, but I'm actually quite impressed with the amount of time and effort that they have, as a result, been able to sink into Fortnite. Now, I know there's probably a lot of hate surrounding Fortnite, just because it's a popular game, so there's gonna be people who hate on it, and just because it's not all super realistic graphics, or it's a stupid game for this, that, or the other reason, blah blah blah. It's a it's a free to play ripoff of PUBG, blah blah blah, yada yada, blah blah blah. And you know what? You're well within your rights to feel that way about Fortnite, if that's how you feel about Fortnite. But the one thing that I feel cannot be denied is that Fortnite is actually bringing something completely new. And even if not completely new, it's not a completely new concept, but it's a concept that's only been dabbled in before, and they're bringing this to a whole new scale, and that is the cross-platform. Now, when I say cross-platform, I don't mean just you play this version of the game on PC and you play that version of it on PlayStation 3, and it's not the exact same game, but it's different parts of a game, yada blah blah blah. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the game that I'm very poorly referencing here is, I think, Eve. I think. So there was a game that basically you could play on the PS3, and then if you could play it on PC with people who were playing on PS3, But basically, all you were doing, if you were doing that, if you were on PC, you were basically doing something oriented around air support. I could be completely wrong. I completely have forgotten which game this is, and I cannot remember. I can't go look up, the actual specific details because I don't remember what game this was. But Epic has brought full cross-platform compatibility to the table as much as they can in light of, in this case, Sony being dickheads. I can play. I own the game. I own Save the World mode and everything on PC. I can play with a couple of friends of mine who play it on Xbox One. Or I could play with the friend of mine that plays it on PlayStation 4. The downside is that Xbox One and PlayStation 4 can't play together. And of course, I can't obviously try to be a buffer between the two. Because, if one's in there, then the other one tries to join. Oh, forbidden platform, blah, blah, blah. Because the opposing console is in there. But I, as a PC player, and I mean, even to, I mean, this is kind of taking the wind out of my sails for these are the pros about consoles. Because Sony. Sony is the one at the moment that is just being, no, we do not want to allow cross-platform play between the Xbox and the PlayStation. But the thing is Epic has successfully brought cross-platform for Fortnite to everywhere else except for Android, but that's only because they haven't brought Fortnite to Android just yet. But it's out on iOS, it's out on PC, it's out on Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and as a PC player, I can play cross-platform with someone that's playing on Xbox, or I can play with someone on PlayStation 4, and I don't know how the feelings are, and I don't even know if it works, but I know if you are playing on iOS, you can play with people, you can play cross-platform with people on PC. I don't know if you can play with anybody that are playing on consoles. I believe you can, but I'm not 100% sure. This is that exception to that rule. In order to be able to do the cross-platform, you have to go through Epic's account services, basically. But I mean, other than that, like, if you're just playing with other friends who play on Xbox or PlayStation, whichever console you have, the linking up with your friends that are playing is just handled through the console system itself. But I mean, that's pretty much that's pretty much the pro. I mean, it's super simplified. The pros to consoles is their simplicity. The fact that unless there is a defect somewhere, they just work. And they're just far simpler to use when trying to play a game, whether you're trying to play by yourself, play with friends. The process is usually just a lot more simple and a lot more relaxed. And, there are some people who cannot stand playing with, using a mouse and keyboard. But that's not a valid argument to go against, gaming on PC. Because PC has the functionality of controller support. And that's one of the things that annoys me. And then there's another video I watched actually not too long ago, and it struck me as very weird that he was acting more in favor of consoles. But I recently watched a video of one of the people I'm subscribed to on YouTube, and he's talking about how, like, consoles are all great and this and that because they work flawlessly, and like he's always running into like bugs and crashes and malfunctions when he tries to play a game on his computer. Like he was talking like it was always a frustrating experience for him. And I've never experienced such frustration unless I'm trying to do something outside of the box expected experience with a game. Like, for example, like adding mods to Minecraft or something along those lines. It's the only time I've ever experienced, issues of like, repeated crashings and yada yada yada. I mean, I don't know. Maybe, I know that video was probably at least 3 years old, 4 years old. So, I mean, maybe there was something going on with what he had for specific hardware, maybe? Maybe game releases were just kind of just buggy as all hell at that point? I don't know. I don't know. But it really bugged me because I've never had an experience like that as long as my hardware met the minimum requirements of the game. But I mean, he was arguing though that that's something you never run into, or very rarely by comparison, run into when gaming on console, and that is true. As long as something wasn't majorly fucked up, the experience is just a lot simpler and a lot easier on console. I mean, you hook the console up, you've got like 3 wires. That's if you don't connect your console to the internet wirelessly. I don't, because I find like streaming just wireless sucks. Wireless is not a super great technology unless you're spending an arm and a leg on your wireless equipment for your network. But I digress. So I've got my consoles all wired to the internet. They're all connected with Ethernet cables. So that means that coming out of my Xbox One, I have just 3 wires for the sake of the basic functionalities: the power cord, the HDMI cable, and the Ethernet cable. Above and beyond that, the only thing that gets plugged in is like controllers or game accessories, like the game pad thing for Lego Dimensions, for example. But just for basic functionality, power, video, and internet. The only cables I've got connected to my Xbox. It's that simple. Boom, done. Fantastic. So it is. It's a far simpler experience, and it can still be a great experience too. The hardware used in consoles is always 2 or 3 years behind the PC world. But it's all done in a way where, you know what? This is okay. This is still a good gaming experience. The graphics are still reasonably decent. And I don't feel like I'm sitting here looking at 10-year-old graphics on this game that just came out last week. And the price comparison that I was making earlier is based on the concept of just like running balls to the wall with trying to be, making use of bleeding edge technologies like HDR and 4K. But if that's not for you, like if you're not like super into that stuff, then you're going to have a pleasant enough gaming experience just getting like an Xbox One S at this point. Even getting a used one from like a pawn shop for like $200. That's what I spent on mine. $200. Xbox One S with 1 terabyte. It's the Battlefield 1 edition. Cost me $200 at a pawn shop, and I've got it hooked up to a 1080p TV. And gaming, it looks plenty good enough with the graphics. Granted, I also game in 1080p on my computer because my monitor doesn't do 4K, but 1080p, I've been at 1080p for a good few years now. It's not anything horrific. And it is. It's just, there is really nothing wrong with gaming on a console. And I know in the past, I don't know if I ever really did it on my YouTube channel here or not. But yeah, I've done plenty of hating on console, and it's just because of the lack of freedom you have on a console. You're locked into what's in that box, and that's it. And then there's other like shady business practices, like charging people an extra fee each month to be able to play online with their friends, in games where they've already paid money for the console, they paid money for the game, and now they're already paying somebody else already for internet access, and now they have to pay Microsoft or Sony even more money on top of all of that in order to be able to play online with their friends. And but in my opinion, that's extortion. I mean, there's absolutely no reason that should be in place. I mean, I know in the old days and the first Halo games, and for all I know, they still the games like this still work like this today. For the most part, except for maybe a select few, but it's all matchmaking based. You've got the main server for the company that made the game, basically pinging all these different players, finding out the ones that are all closest to each other and grouping them up and designating one of them as the host. I know the original Halo games used to do that. And the thing is that happens on computer too, with the newer Call of Duty games, going through Steam. They don't have the dedicated servers anymore. It's all matchmaking, and one person is set as the host, yada yada. So I don't understand really the need for Microsoft to be charging the extra money for live, because a lot of the gaming load, the hard actual processing of everything, all Microsoft systems are doing is carrying the information that's passed back and forth. From my understanding, most of the hard work is handled by servers hosted by the game publishers or the developers. So, I don't know. I feel like it's extortion. I feel like we shouldn't have to do that. Shouldn't have to pay an extra premium just to be able to play online. So, I don't know. But I mean, that's my take on the whole situation. I honestly believe that, like, as far as having a good gaming experience, can be had but just about equally easy on any platform. As long as, I mean, obviously, as long as the platform you're choosing supports the games you want to play. I mean, you're not going to be playing God of War on Xbox. That's just not going to happen. But aside from things like that, it doesn't matter what platform you choose. And I honestly feel like at this point, these console wars and general platform wars is taking up too much time and energy and focus from the other things that gamers should be uniting on and trying to fight against. You know, working together to make gaming better for those of us who really enjoy gaming. But instead, we've got all these little children bickering and fighting over which console's better, which console's capable of what, which one does this, that, or the other thing, and which one doesn't. And it's a waste of energy, and as a result, you have companies like Microsoft and Sony getting away with things like charging that extra fee to be able to play online with your friends. If all gamers were to set aside their differences in their taste in platform, stop and think about the things that we as gamers could accomplish as a united, single-sided force. Working completely together instead of at each other's throats, we could accomplish things like not having to pay to be able to play online with console. We can put a stop to companies trying to pull bullshit like what EA tried to do with microtransactions in Battlefront 2. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, if you look at it, yeah, we have bickering and we have wars, fanboy wars in the PC world too, because we've got Intel, AMD, and Nvidia, which are like the three main companies that produce and develop all the core hardware, the processors, the graphics cards. And the thing is, though, is that with like a united front, we are as PC gamers, as PC enthusiasts, we know how things should be. things have been, like playing online, gaming with our friends online, and not having to pay extra for it is something that I'd be surprised if any company ever actually tries to pull that shit. There's gonna be massive, massive backlash. And at the very least, the first few times any company out there tries to pull that shit, that company is going to wind up tanking. Because as PC gamers, we fully accustomed to not having to pay to play online. And we don't want to. We don't see any valid reason why we should have to. Because for the most part, the fact of the matter is it's one of our computers that's handling all the multiplayer traffic anyways. Well, not the traffic itself, but all the processing of said traffic. You take, for example, like the Battlefield games. I only have experience with like Battlefield 3 and newer. But I mean, like even the Call of Duty games up to Call of Duty 4, and then a little bit in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. There's the dedicated servers, and there's the publishers and developers host their own dedicated servers, or at least with Battlefield they did anyway. Dice and EA had some dedicated servers. But I mean, for the most part, if you go look at like the dedicated server list for the Battlefield games, most of the servers are paid for by people who play the game. Granted, it's hosted, and they're hosted by like third-party services that are approved by DICE and or EA. But it's not DICE or EA's equipment or hardware or network that's taking the hit from those servers being used. It's these third-party services, these third-party companies and third-party websites that are being used and are the ones doing the work to run these servers. So, and with Minecraft, again, you have... I mean, I've been kind of out of the loop with how Minecraft's working these days, but I know back in the day, like before Microsoft owned it, and for a while at least after they bought it, Minecraft servers were pretty much hosted by the people that were playing, for the most part. They're, private individuals. They would either pay for a hosting service specifically, or they would host it themselves on their own hardware in their house, and only give out the connection, if the server info, to the people they trusted. Or if they were making it super public, they would have a bunch of like things in place to help try and protect the server itself from being basically trolled. And I mean, there's all kinds of aspects that can be traced all back and forth. But I mean, there's a few core concepts that are undeniable. I mean, it's so much easier to play like local multiplayer with a console. Because, I mean, typically speaking, you have your console hooked up to a big screen TV of some kind. And if it comes down to it, I mean, it's just like super easy. A bunch of people sit around hanging out on the couch in a living room or whatever, or sitting on the bed in the bedroom, and you just pass the controller back and forth, taking turns playing if the game itself doesn't support any kind of actual local multiplayer. Not really that easy to do with with a computer, because typically a computer is set up on a desk. I mean, you could take and set up a computer to a TV, yada yada. But I mean, unless setting it up for solely that purpose, it's not worth the money, considering how much power you need to run like some games. I mean, you could just spend the $200-$300 on a console and boom, you got some family room gaming happening without spending, an arm and a leg. So, I mean, these are the facts of the matter. There is nothing wrong with gaming on a console. There's nothing wrong with liking gaming on a console. There is nothing wrong with preferring console or PC over the other. There is, however, a problem with being hateful about it and telling somebody that they are wrong in their opinion based on the fact that, well, I mean, in general, but especially based on the fact that there's something that you don't like about that platform, or there's something that you like about your preferred platform that the other platforms don't have. This shit just needs to stop. And we need to unite as gamers, because the whole gaming industry is going completely to hell, and it's because we're all at each other's throats over essentially nothing. I own a computer that, I won't lie, I've sunk probably $3,500 into. But that's including all upgrades over time, I think. That's including my gaming mouse, my gaming keyboard, my gaming monitor. That's including the custom liquid cooling loop that I have cooling my graphics card and my CPU. You don't need to spend this much money on having a computer. But I did anyways, just for the fun of it, because I wanted like top of the line, and I wanted to like give me all the frames. It's also not really a consumer grade motherboard and processor that I have. They're kind of more of a prosumer, enthusiast, version. It's the X99. It's kind of like a middle ground between being a toy and a workhorse. It's kind of the middle ground between, in there. My wife has a computer that I built her. It's probably got $1,000 sunk into it. Except that, well, I mean, actually, honestly, no, not even, because the only thing of her computer that was bought specifically for her computer was the motherboard, which I spent like 70. I bought for $70. Everything else in her computer are hand-me-downs from when I upgraded mine. And I know that may seem like kind of a shitty thing to do, but she's not as much of a gamer as I am. She's more of a, playing like Tony Hawk Pro Skater on, PS2 or Super Mario Brothers on Nintendo. There's a few computer games that she likes to play. Or there's a few games that she likes to play on computer. Ark Survival Evolved is one of them. She likes to play Minecraft. She likes to play Grand Theft Auto 5. And I prefer to play such games on computer. And as such, as she took interest in those games, seeing me play them, that's where she played them. That's where she decided to, play them on. So, if nothing else, for the sake of being able to play with me. But she's not a graphics whore. I am. I like having my settings cranked way the hell up. And having just like the prettiest image quality that I can get. And I don't know, I'm definitely a little ridiculous with it. I admit that. Because I'll get close to achieving something, and then you're like, all right, yeah, let me get this next graphics card, and I'll be all set. And then I get that next graphics card, and I can see how much further I can push, and I'll find like another milestone that like I want to try and be able to reach, whether it be trying to successfully run 3 monitors at 60 frames per second, or trying to at like high settings, or trying to drive one screen at like super ultra settings and maintain 60 frames per second, or trying to drive a single screen at ultra settings at 144 frames per second. And then combined with, alright, well, I want to try and overclock this and push this piece of hardware even further, and I want to put these things on water so that, I don't fry them, and that they will actually be able to achieve, this kind of performance increase on overclocking. I have spent way more money into my computer than I really need to. And like I said, all of my hand-me-downs have gone to my wife. And as such, she's running, AMD FX 6300. She's running a Sapphire RX 480 Nitro overclocked, whatever the hell it was. Now, I'm saying these things not to like brag and or to shoot myself in the foot with my arguments, because you don't. I'm not a hypocrite. You don't need. Sometimes it's nice if you're just kind of a hardware enthusiast, kind of like I am, and always trying to achieve that next big, like, hey, yeah, my computer can do this, haha. Which stemmed from like friendly competition I used to have with an old roommate of mine, who I would go back and forth with who had the beefiest computer, just because apparently that's what guys do, All right, it's not apparently, we do. We compete. We're extremely competitive, and you know what? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I mean, I've spent way more in my computer than a person really needs to. You can typically get a decent CPU that comes with its own cooler, and you don't need to water cool your stuff. You don't need to overclock it. You can go spend, $500 to $1,000 and have something decent. And you could spend closer to like $1,500 and have something that's close to top of the line. But I mean, ultimately, I started this whole little bit of rant by pointing out that I've got a computer. My wife's got a computer. My son has a computer. All of which I built. I have an Xbox One. I have two Xbox 360s. I have a PlayStation 2. I have a GameCube. I have a Wii. I have a 3DS. My son has a 2DS. I have a PS3. I'm not opposed to consoles. There is nothing wrong with them. I don't like some of the business practices that the console companies do, like extorting an extra subscription fee out of you every month in order to be able to play the games with your friends online. But the consoles themselves, they're nice because you can just hook them up. If you're willing to pay the money, you can play online with your friends. Your friends list is easily manageable. And you don't need to do all the spending that I mentioned earlier. You just, like I said, I have the Xbox One S. It can upscale to 4K. It does look nice when hooked up to a 4K TV. It does look nicer than, a little bit, crisper image than playing on 1080p on a 4K TV. But I am perfectly content playing at 1080p on my 42-inch plasma with my Xbox One. Perfectly happy. Because there are some times, and a lot of it is now I'm just kind of like, I've gotten over the phase of wanting to go super nuts with graphics. And I'm definitely just at a point now where I'm more into enjoying the game for the game. What the game is. And that's how I look at it. Consoles are fantastic. They're, like I said, I know I'm singing the same tune over and over again, but they're simple to set up, they're simple to use. They flat out work. And they I lost my train of thought. Oh, you can sit there and play local multiplayer with your family right there, bam, on the console without having to own multiple copies of the game or huddle around a desk. Well, I suppose at this point I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to end this video. At this point, I don't know if I've already got enough Fortnite footage to accommodate this 2-hour long ramble. And hopefully you've made it to the end of this video. And hopefully if you came into this video feeling like you were totally, all hail the Xbox, all hail the PlayStation, all hail consoles, all hail the computer. Hopefully I've meandered your opinion a little bit so you're a little bit more open-minded. For the most part, we all wind up getting the same games. And there's no reason that we shouldn't all be able to get along, at least for the most part, with maybe the exception of the occasional, sibling type squabbling here and there once in a while. This nonsense of us all being at each other's throats constantly because we believe that what we use is better. Stop and think. Now, I'm not going to be judgmental, but stop and think. how much of your opinion is swayed by the simple fact that whatever it is you're claiming is the best, how much of that is because of the fact that that's what you have, and that's why you're singing that tune so religiously? I won't lie. I used to be the same way. I used to be absolutely all kinds of fuck consoles. They do nothing but fuck gamers over. All hail the PC. But as I've aged and matured, I've come to realize that the fact of the matter is regardless of what platform we game on, we're all gamers. We're all in this together, and we're all at the mercy, essentially, of companies like Microsoft and Sony and EA and DICE and Activision. And we really should actually get along with each other. I know this sounds like some hippie bullshit, but if you take the time and you look at some of the same genres of games 20 years ago, that the same kind of genre is still out today, how much better quality of a game are the games from 20 years ago compared to the ones that are being put out today? Now, it's been a long time. I'll provide an example. It's been a long time since I've played any of the original Mario Brothers games or Super Mario Brothers games on the Nintendo or the Super Nintendo. But back then, when you could play in any kind of co-op fashion, when you're playing Mario and Luigi, playing at the same time together, I don't recall there being a time when one player died, the game would freeze for a split second, causing momentum issues with the other player. But games, the newer games today, new Super Mario Brothers and newer Super Mario Brothers and new Super Mario Brothers 2. That one was actually a 3DS game, but the other two came out on the Nintendo Wii. And I've spent quite a few hours playing that with my wife, with my son, and she has probably spent a lot more time playing with our son than I have, playing with both of them two combined. But we've all experienced that issue where in those games, if one player dies, typically a little man, the game freezes for a split second, and if we're in mid-jump, it breaks the momentum and causes us to wind up falling. I find that to be very broken-like of a game to do. Now, I'm not saying the older games didn't do that, but I genuinely don't remember them doing that. And unfortunately, I do not have a Super Nintendo or original Nintendo to test it out, and I can't really go off of videos found on YouTube, because you can never really tell for sure whether or not it's the actual console or if it's on an emulator that's doing stuff in the background that compensates for things like that and corrects them. So I mean, I really can't find out objectively, what the case, whether or not those games actually did that. But I can remember playing the games on the original Nintendo, and I don't remember having that problem. And then you have games, dungeon crawlers like Diablo, specifically Diablo 3. Now, I don't know if the original Diablo was like this, but I know I've got friends who've told me about like even older dungeon crawler games like that just were far better, and that the fact of the matter is the Diablo is just very mainstreamed. You sit there, it's super simple to play. All you have to do is just basically sit there and grind, and anything good that you might want, you basically have to rely upon chance in order to find it. For as far as like gear goes. Well, I mean, I've maybe not that same type of game, but I know that I've played games. Like, I mean, even World of Warcraft back when I used to play that, which I fell off. I fell off that wagon shortly after the Mists of Pandaria, because Cataclysm was dumb. Mists of Pandaria was even worse, in my opinion. But back when I used to play, it's like if there was a piece of gear I needed for my character, there was like one or two specific like dungeons I'd have to grind over and over and over again to try and find that piece of gear. Like I could centralize it to like that one spot. And especially running with the same people over and over and over again, it always seemed like it was easier, or at least quicker, to just go ahead and just repeatedly grind them. And once it was found, if nobody else needed it, then, I'd get it. Woohoo! Fantastic. Diablo 3? Nope. You just have to grind and grind and grind. Search like every little chest, every little nook, every little cranny. And it's just, I don't know, I find it very obnoxious and very just mainstreamish. I was like, yeah, just, sink all your time into this. Make it, let's give you the illusion that this game has a lot of content a lot of quality by way of content, just because it takes you forever to find or to accomplish this, that, or the other thing. So it's very, very reliant upon your quantity of effort put into the game, as opposed to your quality of effort. And I gotta say, I really don't like that. But I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna wrap this up now, because I've already talked way longer than you have even probably listened. If you have, by chance, managed to make your way all the way to the end of this video, go ahead and hit that like button, throw a comment down in the comment section, letting me know that you've made it to the end. If you like anything you see as far as, checking out the gameplay here, I mean, go ahead, check out some of my other videos. Right now, I've got a bunch of Far Cry 5 videos. I am taking my sweet ass time moseying through that game. And I'm not even close to, I'm probably about a total of a third of the way through the game, like as far as like completion goes, because I skipped a lot of stuff on the first area. Ow. So, but yeah, go check out my other videos. I mean, if you happen to like anything you see on my channel, by all means subscribe. Throw me some comments. Hateful or not, I don't care. Whatever. But I'm all for some constructive criticism if there's something you didn't like. If you're enjoying any of my content, by all means, hit that subscribe button, hit that notifications button so you actually get notified when YouTube is working like it's supposed to be. As I put videos out. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and close this one up, and thanks for sticking around this long for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Game on!